guys, I'm Laura Vitale, and in this episode of Laura in the Kitchen I want to show you how to make a blackberry crumble. Now I've made a lot of crisps here in Laura in the Kitchen, but I think I might have mentioned it once or twice that in my opinion, or at least to my taste anyway, a crisp and a crumble are a little bit different because a crisp to me always has oats in the topping while a crumble does not. Today we're making a blackberry crumble. It's very easy and delicious. It's very versatile. You could use any berry you prefer. You can also mix and match. Add some different fruits in here, maybe some apples and pears, you name it. Let's go over the ingredients so we can get started. You'll need some vanilla sugar, baking powder, all-purpose flour, brown sugar, some unsalted butter, very cold, additional vanilla sugar, cornstarch, some raw sugar. You're going to need an orange and your blackberries. Now I'm using frozen blackberries for two reasons. One, I can't seem to find fresh blackberries in my local market, and two, I went to a different supermarket, but to get enough to get 6.5 cups of blackberries would have cost me about $22, no joke. So for $6, I bought frozen blackberries, which are fantastic. I love frozen fruit. I always have some on hand, which is great for last minute guests. Now, first thing you want to do is get your oven preheated to 425. I've got my baking dish here over. I have it sitting on a baking sheet that's been lined with aluminum foil because if any of the sugary syrup from the juices of the blackberry were to spill out, it catches on the aluminum foil. It doesn't ruin your oven, doesn't get anything dirty, which is what we like. Before we get started into the recipe, I want to make a quick note about the vanilla sugar. Don't go out to the supermarket and buy vanilla sugar for anything really, because I always make my own and you can too. I've mentioned this a million times that anytime I'm working with a vanilla bean, once I've gotten all the seeds out, the oven's preheated. Once I get the seeds out, what I do is I just put it in like plastic containers like this. These are just the vanilla pods. I've taken the seeds out for a different recipe. And then I just fill the container with sugar. And then I sit there and you get your own vanilla sugar. And it smells incredible. You can use it in baking. I use it to like sweeten up different drinks and whatnot. It's fantastic. But if you don't have any on hand, by all means, just add a small splash of vanilla extract to your mixture and you're good to go. You can use regular sugar. So let's get started. We got my blackberries in this big bowl, and in here I'm going to add in my sugar. And now if you're using fresh berries, make sure you taste them. You can always adjust the sugar according to how sweet they are, depending if they're in season, what time of year it is, and all that jazz. So I'm going to get my cornstarch in there. Then going to add just a little bit of orange zest, not too much. Half of my orange should be plenty, and I'm also just going to add a little bit of orange juice to this. Not much at all, maybe a couple tablespoons. 1 and 2. And I'll eat that as a snack. And I'm just going to toss everything together until all my blackberries are kind of coated in that cornstarch and sugar. Put that into my bowl. I just sprayed onto my dish. I have just sprayed my dish with a little bit of nonstick spray. Nothing fancy. Now it might look like, oh, this is going to look so dry because of that cornstarch. You got to remember that once the blackberries have thawed, or even fresh blackberries, once they cook, they release so much juice, and you need that cornstarch to help thicken those juices. Otherwise, it's going to be really runny and not good. Now in here, all I'm doing is mixing together both kinds of sugar with my flour and baking powder, and I always like to add just a little tiny bit of baking powder to any crumble topping or a crisp topping, because I feel like that little tiny bit helps make the topping a little bit lighter, therefore making it crispier, which a crumble or a crisp should be, right? So just take a second to mix it together. Sometimes the brown sugar, especially when you measure, like pack it into your measuring cup, you know, it can sometimes be a little lumpy. So just take your spoon and mash it all up so it's evenly distributed. That looks good. I'm going to add my butter, and it's really important that it's cold. And now using either a fork or your fingers or whatnot, I don't like to use my hands a whole lot for this part because I want to keep the butter as cold as possible, and the warmth of my skin, of my hands, would kind of break that up and make it, you know, warm and almost melt. So I'm just using a pastry cutter just to cut the butter into my dry mixture, and you just want the butter to be cut into just smaller pieces. and like the size of peas really. And I just take that. I never really run my fingers because sometimes if one of the metal pieces is broken, you can cut yourself really bad, and I've done that. So I keep a knife on hand, and you should too. And I use that to get that off my pastry cutter, and then just go back in. All right, that looks good. Good enough. Just gonna mix it together with a spoon really quickly. Bring my baking dish closer to me. And now just scatter this all over the top. Now tell me if any of you feel the same way I do about the difference between a crisp and a crumble. Now, it might sound strange, and I know some of my friends are like, huh? I don't understand. But that's because I'm a foodie and I love food, and so I'm very sort of picky about certain things. Not a whole lot of things, but certain things I definitely am. And to me, the difference between a crisp and a crumble is something I'm picky about. Maybe ridiculous, but that's okay. Then I take a little bit of raw sugar, just for texture really, and sprinkle that over the top. It's also known as demerara sugar, so look for that in your local market if you can't find it labeled raw sugar. All right, that'll do. Just a few tablespoons. I'm gonna pop this into the oven for around 35 to 40 minutes, or until the top is a beautiful golden brown. Everything's bubbly, and then we're gonna serve it up. I'll show you what it looks like once it's done. And you might wanna run to the store or send somebody to the store, or if you were smart, you'll go to laurainthekitchen.com and look at my recipe for vanilla gelato, because nothing is better than some vanilla ice cream or vanilla gelato along with a crumble. My crumble was in the oven for around 40 minutes or so. I've let it cool for about 10 minutes, only because when I took it out of the oven, it was bubbling like crazy. And you know me, I'm gonna go straight into this, and I would seriously burn the roof of my mouth, which we don't want. But look how beautiful. You hear that? It's crunchy. It's beautiful golden brown. Oh, it's gonna be good. It's gonna be real good. So, like I said, this works with tons of different fruit. You can mix berries if you want to. I'll go back in for more. Go to laurainthekitchen.com to get this recipe. I'm going to serve this with some vanilla ice cream when I serve it to my guests. I hope you enjoy spending time with me, and I hope you do the same thing. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.